Volcanoes are one of the most spectacular and terrifying forces of nature in the world. They have the power to destroy entire cities and even change the course of history. It's no wonder that they have inspired so much myth and legend throughout the centuries. But how much of what we think we know about volcanoes is actually true? From the shape of volcanic mountains to the color of lava, there are plenty of common misconceptions out there about these fiery giants. Today we're going to separate fact from fiction and explore some of the most common volcano myths that have been busted by science. So get ready to learn all about the truth behind these explosive natural wonders. Myth 1. Volcanoes are always cone-shaped. If you've seen any pictures of Mount Vesuvius or Mount Fuji, you may have noticed that they both look like classic volcano cones. In fact, though, this is only one of many different shapes that volcanoes can take. In reality, volcanoes come in all different shapes and sizes, from the tall and pointy stratovolcanoes like Mount Fuji to the wide and flat shield volcanoes like Mauna Loa in Hawaii. The shape of a volcano depends on a variety of factors, including the type of magma it erupts, the amount of gas, and the steepness of its slopes. So while it may be a common trope in movies to show a volcano as an ominous cone looming over the landscape, the truth is that they can come in all shapes and sizes. No, 2. Only hot magma comes out of volcanoes. We've all seen the classic image of molten lava flowing down the side of a volcano. But did you know that not all magma is created equal? In fact, the temperature of magma can vary widely depending on its composition and depth. According to National Geographic, magma can range in temperature from as low as 750 degrees Fahrenheit to as high as 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a pretty wide range. And it means that not all volcanic eruptions are the same. Some, like those at Kilauea in Hawaii, produce runny lava flows that move quickly across the landscape. Others, like those at Mount St. Helens in Washington state, produce thick and sticky lava that doesn't travel as far. But that's not all. Magma also contains dissolved gases that can be released during an eruption, creating even more variety in the types of volcanic eruptions that occur. These eruptions can range from gentle and effusive to explosive and dangerous. For example, at Mount St. Helens, a massive explosion in 1980 blew out the side of the mountain and created a cloud of ash that reached all the way into the stratosphere. On the other hand, at Kilauea, lava flows have been observed to travel for miles before coming to a stop. So while we might think of lava as always being hot, the truth is that there's a lot more to these fiery flows than meets the eye. Myth 3. Volcanoes only erupt once. If you're thinking of Mount Vesuvius, which famously erupted and destroyed the Roman city of Pompeii in 79 AD, you're not alone. Many people believe that volcanoes erupt only once and then are dormant forever. But the truth is that most volcanoes erupt multiple times over the course of their long lives. In fact, some volcanoes have had hundreds of eruptions over the course of thousands of years. Take, for example, Mount Fuji, Japan's highest and most famous mountain. It's believed that Mount Fuji has had over 100 major eruptions since it began forming more than 5,000 years ago. Most of these eruptions were not particularly violent, but they add up to a lot of activity over the course of several millennia. Mount Vesuvius is another famous volcano with a long history of eruptions. While its eruption in 79 AD was the most famous and most devastating, it had already erupted several times before and would go on to erupt many more times in the centuries and millennia to come. So while it may seem like a volcano's job is to put on one big show and then disappear, the truth is that they tend to be much more active than that. Myth 4. Volcanoes are only found on land. You might be surprised to learn that not all volcanoes are located on dry land. In fact, there are plenty of volcanoes that can be found beneath the ocean. Submarine volcanoes are formed in much the same way as those on land, but instead of building up out of the seafloor, they remain underwater. In some cases, submarine volcanoes can create new islands when they erupt, such as the island of Surtsey in Iceland, which was formed by a volcanic eruption in 1965. However, most submarine volcanoes are not so dramatic and do not create new land masses. Instead, they can form unique ecosystems, providing habitats for a variety of marine organisms. Despite being hidden beneath the waves, submarine volcanoes can still pose a risk to humans. Underwater volcanoes can cause significant damage to ships and other marine vessels if they erupt while a ship is passing by. Additionally, submarine volcanoes can trigger tsunamis, which can cause widespread damage and loss of life. One of the most famous examples of a destructive submarine volcano is Krakatoa in Indonesia. In 1883, Krakatoa erupted, causing a tsunami that killed tens of thousands of people in nearby coastal communities. No. 5. Volcanic ash is dangerous to breathe. When you picture a volcanic eruption, you probably imagine hot molten lava flowing down the side of a mountain. But did you know that volcanic eruptions can also release a dangerous cloud of ash into the air? Volcanic ash is made up of tiny pieces of rock and other materials that are ejected from the volcano during an eruption. This material can be carried by winds far away from the eruption site, posing a serious threat to human health. So, how exactly is volcanic ash dangerous to breathe? Well, it all has to do with the size of the particles. Volcanic ash particles are very small, which allows them to stay suspended in the air for long periods of time. This means that they can be inhaled deep into the lungs, where they can cause irritation and inflammation. Additionally, volcanic ash particles are often sharp and jagged, which can cause cuts and abrasions in the lungs. This can lead to serious respiratory problems such as asthma, bronchitis, and even lung cancer. Not only can volcanic ash affect your lungs, but it can also make its way into your eyes and skin. The particles can cause severe irritation, leading to redness, watering, and even burning sensations. Number 6. All volcanoes are created equal. You might think that all volcanoes are the same, but did you know that they're actually quite different from each other? In fact, scientists classify volcanoes into different types based on their shape, size, and how they erupt. There are 3 main types of volcanoes: cinder cone volcanoes, composite volcanoes, and shield volcanoes. Cinder cone volcanoes are the simplest type of volcano. They're usually small and cone-shaped and erupt with lava that quickly hardens into a rough, jagged mass. Composite volcanoes, on the other hand, are much larger and more complex. They're made up of layers of lava, ash, and other materials and can erupt explosively or steadily. Shield volcanoes are also large, but instead of being made up of layers, they have gently sloping sides. They tend to erupt with runny lava that flows easily down their sides. So, while we might think that all volcanoes are the same, the truth is that they come in all shapes and sizes, and have different ways of erupting. From the smallest cinder cone volcanoes to the largest shield volcanoes, each one is unique in its own way. Number 7. You can predict when a volcano will erupt. Volcanoes are powerful and awe-inspiring natural phenomena that have fascinated humans for centuries. Their unpredictable nature has led to both fear and fascination, with many cultures developing myths and legends around these fiery giants. But despite our long history of living alongside volcanoes, we still don't know exactly how to predict when one will erupt. Scientists have come a long way in understanding the behavior of volcanoes, and can identify certain warning signs that indicate an impending eruption. For example, increased seismic activity, changes in gas emissions, and ground deformation can all signal that a volcano is becoming restless. However, even with all of these monitoring tools, predicting the exact timing of an eruption remains elusive. Number 8. Living near a volcano is dangerous. If you live in an area with volcanoes, you may have been warned by friends or family to stay away just in case. But did you know that living near a volcano isn't necessarily dangerous? In fact, millions of people around the world live within the vicinity of active volcanoes without any major issues. It's true that volcanoes can pose a risk to human life and property if they erupt, but with proper planning and safety measures, it's possible to live near a volcano without being at risk. For example, many volcanoes have monitoring systems in place to track their activity and alert residents when there is an increased risk of eruption. Additionally, evacuation plans and drills can help ensure that people know what to do in the event of an emergency. Now it's time to put your knowledge to the test. How many of these myths did you already know? Which ones were you surprised to learn? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more fun and educational content. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.